So before we get into Girls with Bad Reputations, we got to talk a little bit about the first book where we met the Lillys. So tell us a little bit about The Girl with Stars in Her Eyes.
Right. So when I first came up with the idea for the series, Lily was the first character that came to me, oddly enough, the lead singer. And I just thought it was going to be a book about her and her life, and I kind of put it aside. And then when I had an opportunity to work with a publisher who really liked the idea of an all-female rock band, we were trying to figure out a way to introduce the reader to the world of the Lillys and not just drop them straight into this like rock nonsense. And I thought, okay, here is a person who's a musician, like it's in her blood. She loves music. It's what she's all about, but she has no interest in being famous at all. Right. So she grew up with a mother who was always chasing fame, to the point where she sends her 12-year-old daughter on her birthday to go live with her father, who she's never met. She just like puts her on a bus and ships her off. So she's just really averse to fame, doesn't want to have anything to do with it, but she wants to be a working musician. So we meet Tony. Her dream is to own a studio and like be a hired gun and all this other kind of stuff. And she gets this opportunity to buy into like a legendary studio in Philadelphia, but she doesn't have the cash. So someone tells her about this audition that's happening for this band. They need a temporary guitarist because their current guitarist is quote unquote ill. And Tony's like, do I want to even deal with this nonsense short term? But it's a crazy amount of money. And it's like the perfect thing that she needs to buy into the studio. So she decides to audition. And the person that's sort of not in charge of the audition, but has some sway with the band, their manager, is the guy who like left her behind in the small town where she first lands to live with her dad. He's like the guy, she gets out of the cab and he's standing there with a guitar slung over his back, like a couple years older than her. And they kind of bond over music and have this like pact they're going to get out of town together when they turn 18. But he's a little older and he leaves first and leaves her behind. So it's like I was telling you before, it's like a childhood friends to enemies to friends to lovers, second chance romance.
All the hyphens that you could ever want.
Yeah. And then like all the found family of a band, and you meet the band when they're just moving out of dive bars into like bigger venues and they just got their record deal. So you're really just sort of like dipping your toes in the world of the Lillys in that book.
So Lily came to your head first.
Yeah.
But Lily didn't get to be the story of the first book.
No.
How did that happen?
So as soon as I said, okay, there's going to be 4 books, Lily was like, I'm last. And I was like, but I'm last. And I was like, okay, because I'm a pantser. If you don't know what that means, I don't plot. I do let my stories live in my head like films, so I can rewind scenes until I get them down and then I write them. So I just let the characters do what they're going to do and say and interact and all kinds of stuff. And I just watch it. And then when something interesting happens, I'll hit rewind. I go, oh, that's a scene. Okay. Yeah, but Lily insisted that she was the last character.
Given that she doesn't want fame, I'm kind of not surprised.
No, Tony doesn't want fame. Lily is, she's like a larger than life character, but she's also very enigmatic. You get to know her little bits of her between book 1 and book 2, and she opens up a little bit.
Are there any like archetypes in your head, like this person's based on this famous musician out here or anything like that? Or
for Tony in book 1, I had a very clear idea of who she was, and then I realized that I was basing her loosely on this musician named Her. She's a multi-instrumentalist, like really driven, really self-contained, really focused. There's a video of her, if you guys have never seen it, on YouTube when she's like 12 or 13 years old on like Good Morning America, one of those like national morning shows, where her parents bring her on because she's like a prodigy, and she sings an Alicia Keys song, and I forget who the interviewer was. It was like Robin or somebody like that. And they're like, oh, you're so cute. Like, what do you want to be when you grow up? She's like, well, I'm going to win some Grammys and I'm going to do this. I'm going to be in some films. And they were like, okay, little girl. And, now she's like, she just played the Super Bowl, with Usher. She has like 6 Grammys, I think, at this point. She was just in The Color Purple. Like everything that she said she was going to do. And that's kind of how Tony is, except not fame. She doesn't want the fame. She wants to own like the best studio and be like the best female engineer ever and like that kind of thing. And then meeting the Lillys, she sort of discovers another path. She can have sort of both,
Mm-hmm.
She can control the kind of fame that she has. And I don't think that's something that she considered before meeting them. But yeah, so Her was definitely an archetype for her. And then Lily I saw a photo of Taylor Momsen, She's like an actress turned singer, I guess, like a rock singer. And she's sort of sitting on a stack of, I think, amps with like one leg up and like this raccoon eyes and like, torn fishnet. And she just looked like say something. You know what I mean? I was like, oh, I got to write something. So I just put that aside, and that was Lily. But that's the only thing I had that would like refer her. And then the other two, I'm still getting to learn. I had to learn Kayla, who Kayla was. There's no archetype for her. And Tiff, I'm just getting to know now because I'm writing her book. So.
And we certainly find out more about Seb and Tony in book 2.
Yeah.
Just as their story kind of continues alongside everybody else.
Yeah.
Let's talk about girls with bad reputations. It's Kayla the drummer.
Yes.
And Ty, who ends up being their bus driver while they're out on tour.
Yeah.
Where did this come from? Because I just love these two so much from their very first appearance in the pages.
Too. So like whenever I'm writing, whatever character comes to me first, because my characters rarely come to me in pairs. Like I never have like, oh, here are the two love interests or whatever. It's like one character has a stronger voice, or that's the story that I see first. And in this case, obviously, it was Kayla because she's the drummer. I didn't really know all about her background in book 1. I knew that she was from Athens, Georgia, but didn't live there anymore. I knew that her parents were something, but I didn't know. So as she started telling me her story, I was like, my goodness, like you've been through a lot. Like I didn't know about her brother. I didn't know any of that. And then my second question is, okay, now I know who you are. Who is the person that you would fall in love with? Or who is the person that would catch your eye? And Ty walked in the room like fully formed. Like he just showed up. Him and his pop-pop just showed up. And I was like, oh, okay, well, I guess it's you, But he's one of my favorite characters I've ever written. Like, I don't know where he came from. He is so sweet and so supportive. Not a pushover, Like he's a cinnamon roll, but he's also got like a really strong backbone. He's a really good support system for her, which she really needed. And on the other hand, she's a really good support system for him. Like they see things in each other. They see each other in each other. Like the very first time they meet, there's like one of those like Spider-Man gift moments where they're like, oh yeah, I see you, like t-shirt and shoes and earrings and kilt. And, there's a whole thing, like they're both alt, and so they kind of recognize that in each other and just build from there, which is really cool. But yeah, I love them. I love them so much. They're one of my favorite couples that I've ever written. And Ty, I would die or kill for Ty.
He's so interesting because, and really the way you structured the two of them, like for Kayla, the last thing she wants to really deal with is her family. Mm-hmm. And she's very into being as open as she can with the band, whereas Ty will do anything, say anything, be his full self with his pop-pop and family, mm-hmm. but is extremely guarded around everybody else. It's a very interesting opposites moment you've set up there for them.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Kayla, like I said, in all of my books, found family is a really big theme. And being in music, found family are the people that you end up playing with, especially if you're in a band. Like, you better love those people. You're going to spend a lot of time with them. So she's finally found a group of people who really love her for who they think she is. And it is her real self, right? Like, she's hiding things from them, but it's still like her idea of her best self she's giving to them. So she feels really open and free. Whereas Ty, at home, and even so, there's a moment in the book where he realizes that he thinks he's keeping a secret from Pop-Pop, but he's not really.
True.
Yeah, but he feels the most comfortable around him. And I think he was okay in his own skin for the most part until these bad things happened to him. And then he felt, okay, now I need to shut the doors. I need to put up the walls or whatever. So he is very guarded. He gets judged just walking down the street, And he just came out of a situation where people were judging him for something that he didn't do just because of like press coverage or, whispers or whatever it was. So yeah, he's very guarded. And I think him walking into this situation and being immediately accepted by almost everyone, was really disconcerting for him at first. And he wasn't quite sure how to take it. And he kind of like tried to keep to himself. You guys go do your thing. I'm just going to stay on the bus and read. And they're like, you have credentials. You can come hang out, And he's like, I don't want to get in anybody's way, So it takes a minute for him to realize he's found these people.
Him losing his shell over time is so wonderful. And especially how Kayla just was like, come on.
She buys him that like journal or whatever she gives him. She's like, it's like a little olive branch. Because it's like, again, she recognizes something in him that's in herself, like this guardedness, this like wariness. And she's like, you're cool. Like, here's something for your collection. And he's like, how did you even know that I use the, you know what I mean? Like he's just so taken aback by it. And I love that she teases it out of him a little bit. And he does the same thing with her, you know, and they're just so sweet.
They are. Are we gushing enough about the books,
Sorry.
y'all? I don't know.
I mean, it sounds weird because I wrote the thing and I'm like, I love them so much, you know, but like, yeah, I
As a pantser, how did Kayla end up and form for you? Because she's got secrets she's keeping from the band for a while. She's got secrets she's keeping from her family. She's got all these secrets. And yet she's also this very fun-loving, vivacious, fierce drummer at the same time.
yeah.
So many little, counterpoints in herself.
Yeah, I think a lot of people can relate to, I mean, I can. When you're away from your family, you're a different person. You behave differently. You speak differently sometimes than you are when you're with your family. Like if you grow up, especially in her case, she grows up in a household where her mom is very, not strict, but exacting. You know, like I think her mother thought she was giving her freedom, but really she was trying to like mold her into something that she wasn't. And Kayla, you know, until a certain age was like, okay, I have to dress a certain way. I have to speak a certain way. I have to hide the fact that I love playing the drums. I have to do these things. And then when she's away from home, when she's hanging out with her brother and his friends, she's like, I can just sit here and listen to music, or I can play drums, or I can do whatever. And then when she goes back home, she's back in that box. So I think getting out of that box, leaving home for her was like the best decision she ever made. And so I think that for me, getting to know her, I knew her as the heartbeat of the band, but I didn't know her background. And when I realized the stuff about her mother writing the books that were based on her, like that can you imagine that pressure? Like you're writing a series of books about a perfect child, and then you're the model for the perfect child, and you're just like, I don't want to wear this dress. I don't want to wear these shoes. I don't want to be this girl, you know? And she's just like, you know, we've given you this privilege. You need to take advantage of it, kind of thing. So yeah, it was interesting getting to know her through that. And then her relationship with her mother was such a delicate line to walk, because I didn't want her mother to be a caricature, you know? But there's a thing, particularly in marginalized communities, when you've achieved a certain amount of success and you have children, where you want that success to continue through them in the way that you want it to continue. It's like, here's the path that we've created. We've laid it out for you. You have nothing to struggle about, and you're going over there. Like, why are you doing that? You know? So that was some of the conversations that didn't end up in the book were a bit more harsh. Mm-hmm. But I knew that everything that her mother did for her was out of love. You know, I think in Tony's case, her mother didn't know how to mother. And so she just kind of did the basics, make sure she had something to eat maybe and like a roof over her head. Whereas, you know, Giselle Arrington is like, I'm the perfect mother. You are the perfect children. We've given you everything. We're caring for you. You have no wants, no worries, you know. But she's a little bit over the top, a little bit smothering about it. So it was interesting getting to know that dynamic.
Yeah, she's the ultimate sort of like, we must protect this image at all costs.
Yeah, yeah.
Including with her husband.
With her husband. And her husband, you know, I love Kayla's dad. He's a lovely man. But my goodness. Like, dude, you know, but I understand they suffered a loss, like a big loss, right? And so I think his motivation is just to keep things nice, keep the peace, like make sure the boat doesn't rock too much, you know. He rarely sticks his opinion in anywhere, even when it has something to do with him. Yeah. You know, he's like, whatever your mom wants, let's just, you know.
Yeah, he was interesting.
Yeah, yeah.
She was planning his retirement for him too, without giving away a spoiler. It's like, well, you're retire, you'll do these things
you
when you retire.
You know, this is a perfect opportunity for you to have more stuff on your plate. And he's like, I really just want to do this other thing. Yeah. Giselle's like, she's something.
Mm. I often wondered what scenes of Kayla's childhood would have been like when the books were being written and she started to see, you know. These are the places my mind goes when I get too involved in like things that don't matter in the story.
Right. No, there's a scene, I remember specifically a scene that got cut. I'm pretty sure it got cut because sometimes I don't remember what's in the book, where her mother I think she's just had some success with the books, or the books are really taking off. Not only the children's books, but like her academic books. And so she has this big, like lavish dinner party for the university elite. And Kayla's expected to be at the table in whatever pearls. Like her mother, the clothes that she would pull out for her mom would pull out for her, just crazy. But, you know, and so she's like lollygagging upstairs in her room, doesn't want to come down. Her dad's like, you know, your mom's going to get on you if you don't come down. So she comes down and sits at the dinner table, and it's like, you know, a catered meal kind of thing. And it's just so over the top. And her mother is talking about her in the third person. Like, she's just like, and, you know, Catherine, her real name, Catherine, da 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 da, and blah, blah, blah. And Catherine is Honor Society. And Catherine, and she's like, I'm right here. Like, you know, like she's talking over her head. And she's just, the whole thing is just very, very uncomfortable. But the point of the scene was reiterated in other scenes in the book, so we cut it out. But it was a very formative sort of scene of how their relationship was. And I think she's about 12 in it or so. And then she sort of like, can I go now? You know, and just leaves after the presentation is done. She feels like she's being presented on the platter to these people. Like, look at her academic success and look at her whatever. And it's just like, this is your daughter, not your project. You know, and that's a recurring theme with them.
You mentioned cut scenes. Anything else get cut that you're like, oh, not that?
There are a few love scenes that got cut from the book. There's a lot of love scenes that got cut from the first one, but there were some that got cut from this book because we're straddling that line between like Kayla's story and the romance. And in the first book, Tony's story really took over, and so the romance took sort of a back seat. But in this one, I thought to keep the stories kind of equal, so you get a lot of Kayla and Ty on the page. But yeah, there were a few scenes where my editor's like, this is really hot, but I don't know if we need it. And I was like, but yeah, you know.
That's too bad because their chemistry is so good.
Yeah, my favorite scene to write with them was the tour bus, because I had to do a lot of research about like what you can do in a bunk on a tour bus and stuff. So it was, that was a funny scene for me to write.
Them fitting themselves into the bunk, and you'll know it when you read it because Ty is so big.
He's a tall, lanky guy, and it's like. It's funny. It's like somebody asked me, like, we were talking about funny scenes. And I don't write a lot of, like, quote unquote funny scenes. But the one right before that, when Ty is driving and he gets relieved by the relief driver because you have to drive, like, I think 10 hours and then you have to take a break. So his bunk is right across from Kayla's. So he's, like, tiptoeing back to his bunk and he notices that her little light is on. And she's, like, opens her curtain. She's like, hey, you know. He's like, oh, wow, what are you doing? She's like, I'm just laying here thinking. He's like, what are you thinking about? And she was like, peeing. And she was like, yeah, you know how when you're really comfortable, but you have to pee and you don't want to move because you're really comfortable? And he's like, well, don't let me stop you. And she's like, no, I don't really have to go. I was just thinking about it. And I was like, I don't know where that came from. But that's what I mean by characters kind of write themselves, because I don't know what that is. But yeah, that was one of my favorite scenes to write. That from there until the end of that scene. Yeah.
Now everybody's going to go home and go, where's that scene? I want to read that.
Yeah.
So let's talk about Ty for a little bit.
Sure.
You mentioned that he arrived fully formed. Mm-hmm. What did you figure out about him as you kind of went through? Because you've hinted at, some of the stuff going on for him and the stuff that was in his past that he's trying to keep, kind of locked up and find a way to go forward. Mm-hmm. What was it like kind of uncovering him after he arrived and you're like, this is the guy for her?
Right. So Ty was interesting to write because he had a lot of story. He had a lot of things to say. And I wasn't quite sure what had happened to him because the very first moment I had with Ty was he was having a nightmare. He was having like a PTSD moment. And I was like, whoa. I had to like get up and walk around the room for a minute because I was like, I don't know what I'm writing here. I just started writing because it was like a flashback of a dream or like a moment he had. And I was like, my goodness, what is happening? What kind of book is this going to be? I was like, this is supposed to be like a romance. But I knew that he had gone through something traumatic, but it took a minute for me to figure out what that was. And then once we got there, I was like, okay, how would his grandfather work with him through this? Like, who would the people around him supporting him? But he's also really, really isolated. So he's not in therapy, like that kind of thing, which, he will be going forward. But I was trying to figure out how someone who was so gentle and so kind, who has this horrible thing happen to him, how would he cope with that? And he just, withdrew into his shell, went to his books and his music and his, papa. He moved back home with his grandfather and sort of made his grandfather his focus. Like, I need to do everything I can to take care of this man, and stuff. And so it was interesting, like peeling back the layers of Ty. And then once I got to the soft, gooey core of him, I was like, oh, this is a person who has a lot of strength, but has lost the sight of that. Like he doesn't remember who he is when you first meet him. He's kind of like, he had been on this path to become a teacher and he wanted to give back to the community and all that stuff. And this derailment has like knocked him off course. And so he's not quite sure how to get back there or if he should get back there, if he's welcome there, So it was interesting figuring out who he was. Yeah.
And one of the things that kind of even drew me more into him is not only because you had this deft way of, weaving some mental health things into your characters, there's also a queerness in him that is never really fully labeled.
Yeah.
But you hit on it here and there, so we understand who he is, and Kayla draws an understanding of who he is.
Yeah.
And I just like how it just weaves its way through there. It's not like I'm this or I'm that.
Yeah.
It's just here I am.
Yeah, I think I did that in the first book with Jordan, their attorney.
I love Jordan.
Yeah. There's a
He was so
conversation.
fun.
He is. And if I could ever write a novella like in this series, it would be for Jordan. Because he's out there. Like he's got lawyer Jordan, and then he's got like best friend to Seb Jordan. And they're two very different people. Jordan's pretty wild. But there's a scene in the kitchen when he's talking to Seb. And I don't say anything about Jordan other than that. He's like, I'm going on a date. And Seb's like, oh, is it the flight attendant that you met? She was cute. And he's like, no, it's this guy, this hockey guy or something like that. And that's when you realize he's bi or pan or however you want to describe him. I knew Ty was pan going in, and it wasn't until the conversation with his grandfather where he's kind of like, oh, I guess that wasn't a secret, when that comes out. But and he sort of lays it out to Kayla too that way, like it's very subtle, and I think he does that to see how people are going to react, But yeah, I mean, it's a facet of who they are. It's not everything that they are. So I just want it to be as normalized as possible in these books. Almost all of my books, I think, have queer characters in them, and I've never been like, this is what we are. Sorry, microphone. This is what we are, and this is why. And it's always just an aspect of who they are.
Yeah, and from the moment he's on the page in the kilt, I'm like, I like this guy.
Yeah. He's got painted nails and earrings, and I just loved him. He was so much fun, and he does have. There's another musician named Moses Sumney, who informed Ty's appearance. There's a picture of him in a black utility kilt with a black tank top on, and he's got the short little like locks, and he's got his arms like this, and he's just standing there staring at the camera. And I was like, oh my gosh, it's Ty. Totally, and yeah.
You did research for the bunk
Yeah.
thing. Were there other aspects of touring? Because you do have a background in music and touring and all this other stuff. Did you have to like figure stuff out for this book, but beyond like how to fit people in a bunk?
Yeah. I had to do a lot of research on drumming because I'm not a drummer. I've worked with drummers my whole life, but there's like languages. Even when I wrote The Girl with Stars in Her Eyes, I know a lot about guitar, but I'm not a guitarist, and they have like their own language, and drummers have their own language. So I had to learn about like, stick grips and like different like, paradiddle. I didn't know what a paradiddle was. I knew what it was when I heard it, but I didn't know that's what it was called. So there was a lot of research about that and the size of kit that Kayla might play, and the different types of skins and like cymbal. I mean, way too much stuff. But I learned a lot so that I could speak. She could speak through me, and I wouldn't sound like I wouldn't know what I didn't know what I was talking about. The scene in the drum store when she goes to play.
It's a brilliant scene. So many good scenes.
Yeah. There's fun stuff like that. The tour thing is interesting because I've never toured on a bus. I've been on tour buses with other artists, but I've never toured myself on a bus. So I've never had to be crammed into the tin can. But it's such a small space, and you have a lot of people in there at one time. And if you're on the road, even for like 6 hours, you start to feel it. You start to feel like, can we stop? Can we just stretch our legs or something like that? Everyone's like on top of each other, So yeah, a little bit of that. And then like the length of the bus and how many bunks there are and that kind of thing, and the one that has the bedroom in the back, and doesn't mean there's a shower. I mean, there's all this. I have so much like research on my laptop that didn't make it into the book, but I wanted to feel informed. And some of it will come into the rest of the series too, because their tours get bigger and longer and more elaborate as they go.
Didn't make it into the book, but yet it's there. And that's one of the things I love about it so much. It's like there's the stuff at the drum store, there's in the recording studio, there's on stage at the gigs.
Yeah.
Where I feel like I'm there with them. And because it's not like a big info dump or anything like that, but it's like there's just enough there to fully form out the atmosphere of it all.
Oh, that's such a compliment. No, I wanted everyone to feel like if you knew nothing about music, you would know what I'm talking about, or you feel like you're there. There's a scene because Ty is coming into this not knowing anything either. I think I've been trying to give people like little ins in each book. Like Tony was the in the first one. Ty is the in. He knows nothing about music, but he's standing in the wings at one of the shows, and something goes wrong on stage, and someone thinks that he's one of the crew. So they like shove something in his hand and like, go fix it. And he's like, he kind of like goes out on stage and there's like thousands of people staring at him. But yeah, one of those like, layman moments just to give you like an insight. Or when they're in the studio, there's lots of like banter and lingo and stuff going on. And I know when I work with my band, especially if we're working on new stuff, we just book like 3 hours and we just jam until something coalesces, and then like, oh, that sounds good, play that again. And are you recording that? Yeah, let's play that back, that whole thing. So you feel like you're part of the process.
I love that given how long you've been in music, for most of your life, you've had music, you still had to research for this though. So I like how your already knowledge comes into like gaining even more knowledge.
Yeah, I feel more accomplished as a musician because I had to learn all this stuff. And it's funny because like we were in the studio a couple of weeks ago to record the new single, and I was saying something to my drummer and he was like, what do you know about that? And I was like, well, I did some research for this book. I know it now, Yeah.
And let's talk about that. You're actually recording as the Lillys right now.
Yeah, there's 2 songs out now, and the third one just went into pre-save on Spotify. I just put the links up today so that people can pre-save it. And the original idea for for the first book was to have like an EP out. Like I had a whole timeline in my head of like when their music would drop and when the album would be done and all this stuff. And then the pandemic happened, and the studio that I'd been using for like 10 years shut down permanently. People scattered, all kinds of stuff happened. So we've been doing it sort of piecemeal. So we did two singles. There's a third single. And then I think this summer, we're working on 3 originals right now because the new single is a PJ Harvey cover. But we're working on 3 originals. And then we're going to go into the studio at some point this summer when I'm not writing books and then record these songs. And then by the time Lily's book comes out, book 4, the whole album will be done because that's like the culmination of the band. They're like world tour and Grammys and all that kind of stuff. That'll be like their thing. So.
Did you ever envision channeling a book quite like that?
No. Well, I didn't think I'd be writing at all. Like 10 years ago, if you'd asked me I'd be an author now, I would have laughed at you because the only thing I'd written was some Buffy fanfic. And then, I accidentally wrote a book while I was on the road with my band in Europe. And it was like over months I was writing on my Tumblr blog, and like my 30 followers turned into, I don't know how many people. It went viral on Twitter. Like I had no idea. I was just sort of like letting off steam. And then when I finished, people were like, where can I buy this book? I want to buy this book. And I'm like, what are you talking about? And it was a librarian friend of mine, Dina Halick in Philadelphia, who put it on Goodreads. She asked me for a PDF and I gave it to her, and she put it on Goodreads. She's like, you need a cover. And I was like, for what? She's like, for the book. I'm like, what book? Like, it was just one of those things. And it just, friends were like, you should figure out what to do with this. And here we are, book 12, 10 years later.
That's amazing.
It's bizarre.
You and I first talked like 5 years ago. We were trying to figure out if it's 5 or 6 because, time's kind of a malleable thing.
Yeah.
And to now be here, USA Today bestseller and all that.
Yeah. We talked about the Frankie and Johnny series.
Yeah.
Which just got translated into French.
Find the Frankie and Johnny books. They're so good. That was my first entree into Xio's work, were those books. There's so many interesting side characters here. We talked a little bit about Jordan. Mm-hmm. We've talked about Seb a little bit. Not really a side character because he was a side character in this book.
Yeah.
We got to spend at least a few minutes talking about Ty's grandfather, a little bit more than we already have. I wanted to sit down and just know him.
Right.
He needed a novella. I don't know what on earth you do with a novella for him.
Cookbook. Maybe a cookbook.
Pop's cookbook. There you go.
Yeah.
I love how supportive he is of Ty. I love that he wants to maintain his independence. He wants to cook. I envision him on Bake Off at some point.
Seriously.
Where did he come from, and how fully formed was he when he showed up? Because he seems like, I'm here, and I'm in Ty's life.
Exactly what happened. Like, they both walked in the door, and I was like, oh, hey, They were a package deal. Pop, I didn't have a grandfather growing up. My maternal grandfather passed away before I was born, and my paternal grandfather, I never knew him. So, like, maybe it's just, like, some wish fulfillment or something. I don't know. Like, if I ever had a grandfather, I'd want him to be like Pop. But he's the only family that Ty has known for the last, 10, 12 years of his life, and helped raise him, because, Ty's background is pretty tragic, and he just loves him unconditionally, which is what you want, right? You want that sort of like, I don't care who you love. I don't care what you do with your life. Like he's just very. If you have to hear the audiobook.
You really do.
Because the audio, we'll talk about that. It's like with the audiobook, like his voice is amazing. But yeah, he just doesn't care what Ty does as long as he's happy and out of trouble. That's like his only criteria, And so he gently pushes him in directions, and if Ty gives any sort of resistance, he just backs off. Okay, it's your life, But he's like gently sort of like guiding him, and just supporting him. And I think the cooking thing, I don't know where that came from. I don't know. I just thought it would be funny if, this is like his, he's retired and he's, at home alone, and he just starts baking, and like trying to improve the recipes that he sees on these cooking shows. I could do it better than that, and then he ends up in a situation where he's got this like world-class kitchen at his disposal. I can't even imagine what he's going to do in there. But yeah,
he's going to become the chef there.
He really is. Pop, yeah, he's got opinions. He's not afraid to let you know, but he's a really good guy. Really big heart.
He is. It's an interesting split again between Kayla's mom and Ty's grandfather.
Yeah.
Like the very different ways that they work with their family, try to support their family, and treat their family. It's another one of those interesting opposite things that are going on within the book.
Yeah, and they're both coming up from places of love, just he's like, let me give you your freedom, as much freedom as I can, because of who you are and what you look like. You're going to run into obstacles, so let me not be one of them. Whereas Giselle is like, we've given you every opportunity and you need to take advantage of it in the way that that I want you to. So yeah.
I like how you find those moments in the book too, so that you just communicate them, whether it's how Kayla deals with the guy in the music store.
Drum store,
it's more than a drum store. It's a music store. Or, those occasional moments where, Ty is looked at because of, how he looks. And it's almost like the queerness that it's just kind of woven in there so that it's part of the world that they live in, but also not like, this is the moment we're having a message or something like that.
Yeah. I mean, Kayla is non-gender conforming, right? So like she sort of eschews everything that her mother thinks of as femininity. And, like I drew a lot from both of them from myself. I mean, people always ask, like, what are the characters that you've written that are most like you? Frankie is one. And then these two are the other, because this is like kind of who, I'm a little bit dressed up to have like makeup on and everything. I don't usually do that. I'm just like a jeans and t-shirt person. I don't do my nails and that kind of thing. So like when I was growing up, it was sort of a little bit of like, I remember one time I got a birthday present. It was my dad and my mom, but it was like these like pleated skirts and like these blouses with like little frills on them. And I just looked at it like, where am I ever going to wear that? But that was like them trying to tell me, like they give me something pink, because I was all black. I used to wear all black. Here's a pink, this looks so good on you. Here's a peach sweater. And I'm like, that's not me though. Don't you know who I am? So I think that, Ty being allowed to be who he is, no matter what that is, and Kayla fighting to be who she is and finding people who accept her for who she is a really big theme in all of my books, really, but really in this one especially. They're both very, very strong individuals. They have individual tastes, and they're similar in taste. And so when they meet, they're like, oh my God, I love your shoes. I love your, there's like that. But it goes beyond that. It's like just the way that they view the world and the way that they move about the world. I mean, I've had people judge me for the way that I dress or the color of my skin. I've gone into music situations where people will dismiss me because they think I don't fit in whatever arena it is, especially in the rock world. So there's a lot of that from me in these books.
We hinted at the audiobook a little bit.
Yeah.
You got such amazing voices for Kayla and Ty.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about them.
So Tyla Collier, who reads Kayla, is like a Broadway actress. Like she was in the touring company for Hadestown. Like she's done all this stuff. She's amazing. And Ty, Benjamin Charles reads Ty, and he's also an actor. I think he's done some Broadway and some off-Broadway. But I read mostly through audio, just because at the end of the day, I don't want to stare at another screen. So I listen to a lot of audio. So I follow narrators to authors sometimes. Like I'll follow. And then sometimes I'll discover a narrator. I'm just like, you haven't read anything else that I want to read, but like, I really love your voice. I'm waiting for you to put out something else. And he was one of those people. So he's read some really great stuff. So I somehow wrote this book with Ben's voice in my head for Ty. So it has his cadence and everything. And I didn't realize it until like we were going through past pages, and I was like, oh man, I really hope we can get Benjamin Charles to read this. And then they sent me, the audio company sent me like these actors and actresses to listen to. And Tyler was on the list, but I didn't know who she was. And then I saw the 5 male narrators, and I was like, I don't know any of these people, and Ben's not on this list. So I wrote them back, and I don't usually do this, but I was like, hey, author request, And immediately they were like, he said yes, and I was like, oh my God. So when I got it, like, I think I got the final files at like at 10 p.m. and I stayed up all night listening to the book. Because one, you want to do that. You want to hear it come to life. But also I was just like, okay. So I'm like, Tyler, you're great. You're great. Where's Ben? Like, you're really great. Wait, where's Ben? And then as soon as he opened his mouth, I was like, he nailed it, And then we've done an interview or two together. And I told him that I wrote Ty, because he loves Ty. I told him that I wrote Ty with his voice. And he was like, what? He's just one of those like, oh my God, are you kidding? I'm like, not even joking. He's you. So
That's amazing.
yeah, I was so lucky. And even with The Girl with Stars in Her Eyes, I'm friends with Alexander Tendies. And so I wrote Seb with his voice in my head. So I immediately, when we got the contract, I was like, here's who I want for Seb. Pick whoever else you want. I was like, or send me some auditions to listen to for Tony. But yeah, so I've been really, really fortunate with my traditionally pubbed narrators for the most part. Yeah.
Yeah. If any of you read via audio, definitely check out Ty. I will go search that narrator out now because I could listen to him all day long.
He's read for Riley Hart. He's read for, I think, Sierra Simone, maybe. Okay. Yeah, he's newer. He's newer. He hasn't done that much, but the ones that he's done are really good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You talked about funny scene in the book. Mm-hmm. What's your favorite scene or a favorite scene?
Ooh. I think right now, because it changes, right? I think right now it's the scene when they're on the bus, and I don't remember if it's the first leg or the second leg. I think it's the second leg of their festival tour, and they're on the bus, sort of like noodling, like this is on a bus when you're on a long stretch. Someone will inevitably play out like an acoustic guitar and start like playing, and then like the drummer's like, do that again. You know what I mean? Like stuff just happens, and they're doing that. And then the speaker turns on and it's their song playing. And they're like, what's going on? And Ty's driving and he's like, your song's on the radio. And this is the first time they've heard their song on like national radio, and they're all freak out. And it's such a great moment because I remember the first time I heard my song on the radio. It's just such a special moment. And I love building those things into this, like the first time you play in front of a crowd and they're singing your lyrics back to you. Or the first time, someone says, oh my gosh, they recognize you or something like that. Like those will be built in there. But right now on the bus, when they first hear their song on the radio, is my favorite. Yeah.
Nice. I like the last festival that they're at and the bookends that happen for them.
Oh yeah.
Which is all I'll say about that.
Yeah.
Y'all read the book.
Yeah.
But that bookending moment is like,
Yeah.
I got a lot out of that as a reader, just experiencing that with them.
Yeah. Yeah. Cool.
So what can you tell us about what's next for the Lillys? You mentioned you're working on book 3.
Yes, I am working on Tiff's book, and which is going to break me. Tiff's story is rough. It's really rough. I had a meeting with my editor last week, and we were like, so we have to be really careful with this one. It's going to be a lot of fun because there's a lot of fun stuff happening with the band, and there's a lot of stuff that happens with Tiff in this book that hints to what's coming, like Peaches features, but also all of the other threads from the first book and the second book are still weaving through the other two. So Tony's mom is coming back into the picture. Candy's not going away.
Well, of course not.
The label's still causing trouble. There's some good stuff that happens. Their entourage gets bigger. They pull on more people into their team, so they get a bit more of a buffer around them from some of the stuff that happens in this book, for instance. So yeah, their world is getting bigger, and then they have to, which means when that happens, when you achieve that kind of success, especially rapidly, you need to like close ranks, right? So they start to close ranks, and that might ruffle a few feathers, but yeah.
As a pantser, how much are you trying to think about the arc of the books?
That's all I can think about. I can only think about the arc of the band because I don't know who Tiff's love interest is right now. And I have no idea who's going to catch Lily's eye, right? So like all I can think about is what's happening with the band, and then everything else kind of like, comes along whenever they decide to tell me. Interesting. Because they can be really. I wrote a book once where the character didn't tell me until halfway through the book what his name was.
That's difficult.
And I was like, really, dude?
Do you just go like bracket name, bracket?
Yeah, it was like John or some John's Doe or something like that. And I was like, your name's gonna be John Doe unless you tell me your name. Yeah.
Anything else you're working on alongside this book, or is this book all consuming?
No, I'm working on the follow-up to Love on the Byline, which is a duet. So that'll be maybe the last book, and we'll see what they say. But Brand's book, Love on the Byline, was my attempt at writing a rom-com. I can't write a rom-com. So it turned into sort of like light romantic suspense, I guess. I don't know.
That's a turn.
Yeah, I can't. I just can't do it. I leave it to like Allie Hazelwood and like, Emily Henry and those guys. But in the first book, there's like two friends, like two best friends. It's a great bromance. It's like a wonderful bromance between these two guys. And then another young lady, they're in college together. She and Blake and Ollie are kind of circling each other in college. And they're about to get together, but his best friend throws a wrench in it, not on purpose, just something happens. And she's basically like, if you can be friends with someone like that, then maybe you're not the person I thought you were. And she bounces. And then they meet later on and things happen and whatever. So they get together. But then the second book is Brand's. And Brand is such an interesting character because he's like the jock that everyone is like, you're too spoiled. You're too, like, everyone loves you. I hate you for that. Like that kind of a thing in college. And now he's an A-list actor. So it's like on a grander scale, so he's got a lot of like attitude and self-love that he needs to like dial it back a little bit, bro. So he meets his match in his book. So I'm having a lot of fun writing he fell first. So I'm having a lot of fun writing Brand's book. It's a nice contrast with Tiff's book, which is a little heavy at the moment. So I get to like lighten up with Brand and then go back to Tiff. It's interesting juggling those two.
At least they're very different.
They're very different. Yeah.
Shall we take some questions? And the first question from the audience. So you toured as the Lillys, like inspired by your book?
I haven't toured as them. I've done a couple shows as them. That'd be interesting to tour because my band is all guys. Right, yeah. So right, yeah. On February 6th, when this book came out, I did the thing that I wanted to do. Book one was have a show, right? So we did a show that night at a venue in Philly called The Fire, which is one of the inspirations for the Electric Unicorn. It's like a dive bar, like rock venue. But they all wore their Lillys t-shirts because they were like, did you want us to wear like wigs? I'm like, no, dude. It's just... Nobody thinks you're the Lillys. It's okay, So they wore their t-shirts, and we did the three Lillys songs, and we did like a lot of like classic female rock, like the Go-Go's and Joan Jett and things like that. It was a lot of fun. We played like 45 minutes, and then they were like, when can you come back? And so we were like, oh, I guess we're doing this. So we're gonna try to do a few more things and work out some of their newer material, on the stage, because you really get a feel for the energy of the audience.
And there's a follow-up to that. I find it fascinating because a lot of authors are doing playlists to go with books. And you're like, no, I write my own.
No, I mean, because I do have playlists. I have a really kick-ass playlist for this book. And I do playlists for all my books, but for some reason, this one really, I dialed in like really hard on it. I think it's because I consume so much media, and a lot of the shows that I watch are really meticulous about their playlists. And the one that I was watching, I think when we were going through this one, was Heartstopper. And Heartstopper's like music is... Okay, let me dial it back a second. My favorite television show of all time is called Scum, right? It's a Norwegian TV show that no one's ever heard of. I learned Norwegian so I could watch it, But the thing that they did really well was make music a character on the show. And so a lot of shows that have come out since then, because this was like 2017 when it went off the air, have done that, and Heartstopper does it really well. So I was like, okay, if I were going to have a TV show based on this book, what would that look like? And so those are the songs that are on the playlist for this. But they include the two Lily songs, and then like a lot of other stuff that I've been listening to lately. So, but yeah, playlists are awesome. But yeah, I'm going to take it one step further and be extra.
And another question: are there any authors that you read that, after you're done reading, you're amped up to go in and start writing your own stuff?
Oh my gosh. That's a great question. There are a lot of books that I've read, or a lot of others I've read, where I'm like, man, I wish I'd written this book, right? Like, one of my favorite authors is Sierra Simone. I mentioned her earlier. Sierra has a way of writing that, I don't know, her brain works differently. It just works differently. She's really good at marrying the divine with the profane. I don't know how else to put it. You know what I mean? Like, she has a series called the Priest series, And I remember hate reading the first one. Like I got it for 99 cents and I was like, this is a stupid premise. And I read the book and like it kept me up all night, and I went immediately back to the first page and read it again because I was like, how did you pull me into this world? And then I remember meeting her for the first time at an event, and we were just chatting for like 10 minutes before I realized who she was. And I was like, wait, you wrote Priest? And she's like, you read Priest? And like we had like a Spider-Man moment. So her, I mean, if I could write with the, I don't know, the emotional adeptness of Kennedy Ryan, if I could write with the whimsy of like Allie Hazelwood, or if I could write with, I don't know. I mean, there's so many people, there's so many authors that in the 10 years that I've been in this business that aren't writing as much anymore, that I wish like TikTok would really jump on them, their backlist. Like Laura Kay is one of them. I love that Brittany C. Cherry is getting like a, you know, like her backlist is starting to come out, recovered and everything. Like there's just too many. I'm blanking on names, but there's so many people that I could mention that, yeah, that I go read immediately. There's a lot of stuff that came out the same day that this book came out. And I was like, no one's ever going to hear about this book because these other books are so big. Like Allie's only ever paranormal came out that day, Bride. And I was like, really? Today you're going to, you know. But yeah, there's some amazing stuff out there. And that's one of the things I love about this genre is that there's something for everyone, you know. And so whatever mood you're in, like I feel like reading vampires or motorcycles or hockey, or, you know, you can find it.
Y'all have been great. Xio, it's been fun talking.
It's always great talking to you.